I was 28 when Mom died, and my sister Elena decided that made her the family matriarch. The estate lawyer needs to see us both, I told her over the phone 2 days after the funeral. I already met with him, Elena said dismissively. You don't need to be there. I've handled everything. But Mom's will is complicated. Don't worry about it, Natalie. I'm taking care of the family finances now. That's what oldest daughters do. She hung up before I could respond. Elena was 34, 6 years older than me, and she'd spent our entire lives reminding me of it. She was the successful one, the corporate lawyer married to a surgeon, living in a penthouse on the Upper East Side. I was the disappointment, the social worker with a modest apartment in Astoria helping domestic violence survivors for $52,000 a year. At least that's how Elena saw it. 3 weeks after Mom's funeral, I went to First National Bank to access Mom's safety deposit box. She'd given me a key years ago, along with specific instructions about documents I'd need after her death. I need to access Box 847, I told the bank representative, a pleasant woman named Carol. Of course. Do you have your key and identification? I produced both. Carol checked her computer, then frowned. I'm sorry, but there's a hold on this box. You'll need to speak with the branch manager. A hold? Why? Let me get Mr. Patterson for you. While I waited, Elena walked into the bank. She was wearing a designer suit and carrying a leather bag that probably cost more than my monthly rent. When she saw me, her expression hardened. Natalie, what are you doing here? Accessing Mom's safety deposit box. What are you doing here? The same. He turned to Carol. I called ahead. Elena Castellano. I need Box 847. Carol looked between us uncomfortably. Miss Castellano, your sister was just. My sister doesn't have authorization, Elena interrupted. I'm the executor of our mother's estate. The box is under my control now. That's not what Mom told me, I said quietly. Mom was sick at the end. Confused. She said a lot of things that weren't accurate. Elena's voice had that particular tone she used when explaining things to people she considered inferior. The estate is complex, Natalie. There are trusts, investments, properties. It requires someone with legal and financial expertise to manage properly. Someone like you. Exactly. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You understand. Mr. Patterson emerged from his office, a distinguished man in his 50s who'd known our family for years. Ms. Morrison. Ms. Castellano. Let's discuss this in my office. We followed him into a room with glass walls overlooking the bank floor. Patterson closed the door and gestured for us to sit. There seems to be some confusion about Helena Morrison's estate, he began carefully. There's no confusion, Elena said. I'm the executor. I've placed a hold on all estate assets until probate is complete, including the safety deposit box. Elena, Mom gave me specific instructions. I started. Mom was dying, Elena interrupted. She wasn't thinking clearly. I'm protecting the family assets. That's my responsibility now. Patterson cleared his throat. Ms. Castellano, while you are named as executor of certain aspects of the estate, the safety deposit box has specific access provisions. Both daughters are authorized. Then I'm revoking Natalie's access as executor. You can't do that, Patterson said. The authorization was set up independently of the will. Elena's jaw tightened. Fine. But nothing leaves this bank without my approval. As executor, I have authority over estate assets. He turned to me. You'll never touch the family money, Natalie. I'm in charge now. Mom left me in control because she knew I could handle it. You're in way over your head. I smiled politely, saying nothing. It was a skill I'd developed over years of dealing with Elena. Stay calm, stay quiet, let her talk herself out. You work with abuse victims, for God's sake, Elena continued, warming to her subject. You make barely enough to survive. You have no idea how to manage wealth, how to handle investments, how to deal with complex trusts. This requires sophistication you simply don't have. I understand, I said softly. Do you? Because I'm trying to protect you. The estate is worth over $30 million. That's not money someone with your limitations should be handling. Mr. Patterson shifted uncomfortably. Miss Castellano. It's fine, I said. Elena's right that the estate is complex. I'm sure she'll handle it appropriately. Elena looked surprised that I'd agreed so easily. Good. Then we understand each other. Perfectly. Mr. Patterson, please proceed with the box access, Elena said. I'll supervise to ensure nothing is removed inappropriately. We followed Carol down to the vault. Elena watched as I opened the safety deposit box, her eyes tracking every movement like she thought I might steal something. Inside were documents, jewelry, and a sealed envelope with my name on it in Mom's handwriting. That's mine, I said, reaching for it. Elena's hand shot out. Everything in this box is part of the estate. It stays here until I review it. It's addressed to me. And I'm the executor. Nothing gets removed without my approval. She smiled triumphantly. You'll never touch the family money, Natalie. Not without going through me first. I looked at her for a long moment. If you say so. Something in my tone made her eyes narrow. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. You're in charge. You made that very clear. We stood there in the vault, Elena's hand still on the envelope, when Carol's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and looked startled. Ms. Castellano? Your banker is here. Says it's urgent. Pi banker. Elena frowned. I didn't schedule an appointment. He says it's about your trust fund. Elena's face went slightly pale. Tell him I'll call him later. He says it's time sensitive. Something about approvals. I watched Elena's expression carefully. Watched the confidence start to crack just slightly. Fine, she said irritably. Tell him I'll be up in 5 minutes. He turned back to me. This is probably about releasing some funds. Estate management business. Nothing you need to concern yourself with. Of course, I agreed. We returned upstairs. In the lobby, a man in an expensive suit was waiting. Tall, silver-haired, carrying a leather portfolio. When he saw Elena, his expression was professional but concerned. Miss Castellano. Thank you for seeing me. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. What kind of situation, Gerald? Gerald glanced at me, then at Patterson. Perhaps we should speak privately? It's fine, Elena said impatiently. What's the issue? Gerald pulled out documents. Your monthly trust disbursement. It requires approval from the trust administrator, and we haven't received it yet. The transfer is scheduled for today, but without approval we can't process it. Elena waved her hand dismissively. Then get the approval. Call the trust company. Ma'am, we have called. Multiple times. They're saying all disbursements now require direct authorization from the administrator. That's ridiculous. It's automatic. It's been automatic for years. It was automatic, Gerald corrected carefully. But apparently the administrator has implemented a new review process for all disbursements. Everything requires explicit approval now. Elena's face was reddening. The administrator works for the trust. For my family. They can't just change procedures without notice. Actually, ma'am, according to the trust documents, the administrator has full authority over disbursement procedures. Then tell them to approve it. We've tried. They're requesting a meeting with you to discuss the trust structure and ongoing disbursements. A meeting? I don't have time for meetings. I have the Westfield closing tomorrow, 3 court appearances this week. Elena stopped, visibly collecting herself. Just process the transfer. I'll sort out the administrator later. I can't process it without approval, Ms. Castellano. The trust is worth $25 million. I can't authorize disbursements without proper documentation. 25 million? I said quietly. Elena shot me a sharp look. It's the family trust. You wouldn't understand. Which family trust? I asked. The Morrison Family Trust. Grandpa's trust. It pays out monthly to family members. She turned back to Gerald. Look, I need that money today. I have expenses, obligations. How much is the monthly disbursement? I asked. That's none of your business, Elena snapped. Gerald glanced at his papers. $42,000 monthly to Ms. Castellano. I did the math quickly. That's over $500,000 a year. So. Elena's voice was defensive now. It's family money. I'm entitled to it. And me? I asked. Do I get disbursements from Grandpa's trust? Elena's silence was telling. Ms. Morrison doesn't currently receive disbursements, Gerald said carefully. According to the trust records, she's declined them. Declined them? Elena looked at me sharply. What does that mean? I smiled politely. It means the trust administrator offered and I said no. Why would you say no to free money? Because it wasn't free, I said. And because I didn't need it. Elena stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. You're insane. Who turns down trust money? Someone who prefers to live on what they earn, I replied. That's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. Elena turned back to Gerald. Get the administrator on the phone. No. I want this resolved immediately. Gerald pulled out his phone, dialed and put it on speaker. After 3 rings, a woman's voice answered. Morrison Family Trust Administration. This is Diana Chen speaking. Miss Chen, this is Gerald Whitmore from First National. I'm here with Elena Castellano regarding her monthly disbursement. Ah yes. Miss Castellano. We've been trying to reach you. Elena leaned toward the phone. Why haven't you approved my disbursement? It's automatic. It's always been automatic. Miss Castellano, the trust administrator has implemented a new review process. All disbursements now require explicit approval based on need and responsible use of funds. Need? I don't have to prove need. It's my family money. It's trust money, Diana corrected gently. Held in trust for family members, distributed at the administrator's discretion. The administrator works for us. Actually, the administrator works for the trust as established by your grandfather's wishes. And the administrator has decided that all disbursements require review. Elena's hands were shaking slightly. This is insane. Who is this administrator? I want to speak with them directly. You're speaking to their office now, Ms. Castellano. If you'd like to discuss your disbursements, we can schedule a meeting. A meeting for what? To beg for my own money? To discuss responsible use of trust funds and future disbursement terms, Diana said calmly. The administrator is concerned about the sustainability of current disbursement levels. Sustainability? The trust is worth $25 million. Which is why responsible management is crucial. Excessive disbursements deplete the trust over time. Elena's credit cards fell from her hand, clattering on the marble floor. Her face had gone from red to white. I need that money. I have bills, expenses. Which is exactly why we need to meet, Diana said. To understand your financial situation and determine appropriate disbursement levels going forward. This is. Elena seemed unable to find words. She looked at me suddenly. Did you do this? Do what? I asked. This sudden change. This review process. Her voice was rising. You somehow convinced the administrator to block my money. Elena, I don't even know who the administrator is. Liar. He was nearly shouting now. You've always been jealous of me. Always resented my success. Now you're sabotaging me. Mr. Patterson stepped forward. Miss Castellano, please calm down. We're in a bank. Don't tell me to calm down. My sister is trying to steal from me. I haven't touched your trust fund, I said quietly. I don't even take disbursements from it, remember? Then how is this happening? How is the administrator suddenly reviewing everything right when you show up here? Diana's voice came through the phone. Ms. Castellano, Ms. Morrison has nothing to do with this review process. The administrator makes all decisions independently. I want to speak with the administrator. Now. I can schedule a meeting for later this week. Now. I want to speak with them now. There was a pause. Then Diana said, Hold please. The phone went on hold. Elena paced the lobby, her designer heels clicking against the marble. She kept glancing at me with a mixture of suspicion and something that looked like fear. This is your fault, she muttered. Somehow this is your fault. The hold music stopped. A new voice came through the phone. Calm, professional, familiar. This is Natalie Morrison. I'm the trust administrator. Hello, Elena. The silence in the bank lobby was absolute. Elena's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Her face cycled through several colors. White to red to gray. That's impossible, she finally whispered. It's documented fact, I said. I've been the trust administrator for 5 years. Since I was 23. But you're a social worker. You work with abuse victims. You live in Astoria. You drive a 12-year-old Civic. Yes, I agreed. Because I choose to. Not because I have to. You can't be the administrator. You don't know anything about finance, about money management. I have a master's degree in finance from NYU, I said calmly. And a certification in trust administration. I manage the Morrison Family Trust as my full-time job. The social work is volunteer work I do 2 days a week because it matters to me. Elena looked like she might faint. Gerald produced a chair and she sat down heavily. 5 years, she whispered. You've been in charge for 5 years? Yes. So the disbursements, the $42,000 a month, you've been approving them? Every single month. Along with Dad's $38,000, Aunt Caroline's $28,000, and Uncle Robert's $22,000. Oh my God. Elena put her head in her hands. All this time I've been treating me like I'm poor and incompetent while living on money I approved? I finished gently. Yes. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. Perhaps we should move this to my office. Good idea, I agreed. We returned to the glass-walled office. Elena sat staring at her hands while I pulled documents from my bag. Comprehensive reports I'd brought expecting this conversation to happen eventually. The Morrison Family Trust, I began, was established by Grandpa Morrison 40 years ago. Current value, $25.3 million. Monthly disbursements to family members total approximately $180,000. That's $2.16 million annually. Elena looked up. I don't understand. If you control the trust, why did you let me believe that I was poor, that I was struggling, that I needed your help? I smiled sadly. Because Mom asked me to. Mom knew. Mom is the one who suggested Grandpa appoint me as administrator. She wanted to see how the family would treat me without knowing I had money or power. That's cruel, Elena whispered. Is it? Or is it illuminating? I slid papers across the desk. These are disbursement records for the past 5 years. Elena, you've received $2.52 million from the trust. Money I approved every single month. While you worked as a social worker, she said dully. While I volunteered as a social worker, I corrected. 2 days a week. The rest of the time I manage the trust. I earn $180,000 annually as administrator, plus 3% of trust assets in performance fees. Last year, that was approximately $750,000 total. Elena's head snapped up. You make $750,000 a year? Give or take. And you live in Astoria. I like Astoria. It's a great neighborhood. You drive a 12-year-old Civic. It runs perfectly. Why would I replace it? Because you can afford to. Elena's voice was rising again. You make more than I do. You have more than I do. Why do you live like you're poor? I don't live like I'm poor, I said calmly. I live within my means. There's a difference. But why? What's the point of having money if you don't spend it? I looked at my sister, at her designer suit, her expensive jewelry, her carefully maintained appearance. You spend $42,000 a month in trust money on top of your lawyer salary. Where does it go? She looked away. Expenses. The penthouse, the car, maintaining appearances in my social circle. Your mortgage is $8,000 monthly. Your car lease is $1,800. That leaves over $30,000 a month for appearances. I pulled out more documents. Elena, you have $340,000 in credit card debt. Her face went red. How do you know that? Because part of my job is monitoring family members' financial health. You're drowning in debt while receiving $500,000 a year from the trust. It's expensive living in Manhattan. You wouldn't understand. I understand perfectly, I interrupted. You're spending money to look successful instead of actually being secure. And now you've built a lifestyle you can't maintain without trust disbursements. Elena was silent. The review process I implemented, I continued, isn't about punishing you. It's about helping you. The trust can't sustain these disbursement levels forever. If the family keeps withdrawing $2.16 million annually, the trust will be depleted in 12 years. 12 years. Elena looked genuinely shocked. Yes. Grandpa wanted the trust to last generations. At the current rate, it won't last one. So what are you saying? I'm saying disbursements need to be reduced. Significantly. Starting with yours. You can't do that. Elena stood up. I need that money. My expenses, my lifestyle. Your choices, I finished. You chose the penthouse you can't afford. You chose the car lease that strains your budget. You chose appearances over security. This is revenge, Elena said bitterly. For today. For the bank. For blocking your access. No, I said. This is me doing my job. The job I've been doing for 5 years while you treated me like I was beneath you. Elena sat back down slowly. What do you want from me? I want you to learn what I learned. That real security comes from living within your means. That wealth isn't about appearances. That family isn't about who controls whom, it's about supporting each other honestly. And if I don't accept your conditions? Then the disbursements stop entirely, and you learn to live on your lawyer salary without any trust support. Her hands were shaking. How much are you cutting me to? $15,000 monthly. Still $180,000 a year on top of your income. More than generous. That's a 60% reduction. It's more than you need. And it's still 3 times what most families live on annually. I can't maintain my life on $15,000 a month. Then change your life, I said simply. Downsize the apartment. Sell the leased car. Cut the excessive spending. Learn to live authentically instead of performing success. Elena looked at me with something like desperation. You really think you can force me to do this? I don't have to force you, I said. You can refuse. But then you get zero from the trust and figure out how to live on your lawyer salary while paying off $340,000 in debt. That's impossible. No, it's just hard. There's a difference. I pulled out one final document. Or you can accept the new terms. Reduced disbursement, financial counseling, a plan to pay down your debt and live within your actual means. Financial counseling? I'm a corporate lawyer. Who's $340,000 in debt despite earning $280,000 a year plus trust money. Yes, you need counseling. Elena stared at the document. And Dad? Aunt Caroline? Uncle Robert? Are you cutting them all too? Yes. Everyone gets the same treatment. Financial review, reduced disbursements, counseling requirements. They're going to hate you. Probably, I agreed. But they'll be financially secure. That's more important than being liked. Is it? Elena's voice was bitter. You've been lying to all of us for 5 years. Letting us think you were poor while you controlled our money. How is that better? I never lied, I said. I just didn't correct your assumptions. You assumed I was poor because I lived modestly. You assumed I was incompetent because I did social work. You assumed I needed your help because I didn't flaunt wealth. All while judging us. No. While doing my job. Managing the trust responsibly. Trying to help the family learn what Grandpa wanted us to learn. Which is what? That money isn't success. Security isn't appearance. Family isn't about status or control. It's about genuine care. Elena was quiet for a long time. Finally she said, at the bank. When you said I'd never touch the family money. I was so smug. I noticed. And all along you were the one deciding whether I could access it. Yes. That must have been satisfying. Watching me strut around thinking I was in charge. I looked at her carefully. It was sad actually. Watching you perform superiority while being dependent on money I controlled. Watching you build a life on a foundation that wasn't yours. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I've been horrible to you. Yes, I agreed. You have been. And you still approved my disbursements every month. Because that's my job. And because you're my sister. And because I hoped you'd eventually learn what Mom wanted you to learn. Which is that you're enough without the performance. That real success is security and peace, not appearances and debt. That family means treating people well regardless of their perceived status. Elena wiped her eyes, smearing her expensive mascara. I don't know how to do that. I know. That's why I'm offering help instead of just cutting you off. The financial counseling. Yes. And the reduced disbursement. Yes. And learning to live on my actual income. Yes. Elena looked at me, really looked at me maybe for the first time in years. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. I'm exactly as strong as I always was. You just didn't notice because I didn't perform it the way you expected. She laughed shakily. And now you're going to teach me how to be strong like you? If you'll let me. Elena picked up the document outlining the new terms. Read it carefully. Put it down. What if I fail? What if I can't do it? Then we adjust. Try again. Figure it out together. That's what family does. Real family, not the performance of it. Okay, she whispered. Okay. I'll try. The counseling, the budget, all of it. She looked up at me. Will you help me? Actually help me, not just cut me off and watch me struggle. Yes, I said. That's what I've been trying to do all along. 6 months later, Elena and I had dinner in my Astoria apartment. A Thursday tradition we'd started. The counselor says I'm doing well, Elena reported, eating the simple pasta I'd made. 3 months of living within budget. I've paid off $45,000 in debt. That's wonderful. And we put the penthouse on the market. Found a great 2-bedroom in Brooklyn. Half the cost, twice the space. How does it feel? Terrifying, Elena admitted. But also, lighter? Like I've been carrying this weight of maintaining appearances and suddenly I can just be. That's exactly it, I said. Natalie, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you keep approving my disbursements? Month after month, year after year, while I treated you terribly. Why not cut me off? I thought about how to answer. Because you're my sister. Because Mom asked me to give you time to learn. Because cutting you off would have been easy. Helping you change is harder. I don't deserve it. Maybe not. But that's not really the point. What is the point? That family isn't about deserving. It's about showing up. It's about believing people can change. It's about doing the hard thing because it's the right thing. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I've been thinking about that day at the bank. How sure I was that I was in charge. That I had all the power. You did have power, I said. Just not the kind you thought. What do you mean? You had the power to be kind. To treat me with respect. To see me as a person instead of a disappointment. You just didn't use it. And you had actual power, control of the trust. And you used it to help me instead of hurt me. That's what power is for, I said simply. Not to control people. To help them. We ate in comfortable silence. Outside my window, Astoria hummed with evening energy. Inside, slowly, we were building something real. Dad called, Elena said eventually. He's agreed to the new terms. So have Aunt Caroline and Uncle Robert. How are they taking it? About like I did. Shock, anger, then slowly accepting that you're right. She smiled. Dad said you're more like Grandpa than any of us realized. What did he mean? Grandpa always said real wealth was about security, not appearance. That money was a tool, not a trophy. You're living that. The rest of us forgot. You're remembering now, I pointed out. Thanks to you. Elena put down her fork. I owe you an apology. A real one, not the half-hearted thing I said 6 months ago. Elena. No, let me say this. I spent 6 years treating you like you were less than me. Like you were a failure because you didn't live the way I thought success should look. I was cruel. Dismissive. I made you feel small. Yes, I agreed. And all that time you were more successful than I was. More secure. More genuinely happy. And you were controlling the money that funded my fake life. It's not about who's more successful. But it is. Elena interrupted. Because I built my entire identity around being better than you. The successful lawyer, the perfect life, the money and status. And it was all fake. All performance. Built on debt and trust disbursements I didn't even earn. So now you're building something real, I said. Because you're making me. Because you're choosing to, I corrected. I gave you options. You could have refused. Walked away. Tried to live on your lawyer salary alone. But you chose to try. To change. That's not me making you. That's you deciding to do better. Elena wiped her eyes. When did you get so wise? When I spent 5 years watching people I loved destroy themselves trying to look successful instead of being secure. Was it hard? Watching us, knowing you could help but having to wait. Yes, I admitted. Especially with you. You're my sister. I wanted to help you years ago. But Mom said you needed to learn the lesson yourself. That if I told you, you'd never really understand. She was right, Elena said. If you'd told me 5 years ago that I was living beyond my means, I would have laughed. Told you that you just didn't understand what real success looked like. And now I understand that real success is peace. It's security. It's being able to sleep at night without worrying about debt. It's living authentically instead of performing for others. Exactly, I said. Thank you, Elena said quietly. For not giving up on me. For doing the hard thing instead of the easy thing. You're my sister, I said simply. That's what family does. 1 year after the confrontation at the bank, the Morrison Family Trust stood at $26.8 million, growing instead of depleting for the first time in a decade. Elena lived in Brooklyn now, in a 2-bedroom she and her husband actually owned. She'd paid off $180,000 in debt and started saving for the first time in her adult life. Dad downsized to a condo and started consulting part-time. Aunt Caroline sold her expensive car and discovered she enjoyed taking the subway. Uncle Robert paid off his home equity line and started volunteering at a food bank. And I still lived in Astoria. Still drove my 12-year-old Civic. Still volunteered with domestic violence survivors 2 days a week. Still managed the trust the other 5 days, ensuring the family had security instead of just money. I don't understand you, Elena said one Thursday over dinner. You could live anywhere. Do anything. Why this? She gestured around my modest apartment. Because this is enough, I said. This apartment is comfortable. My work is meaningful. My life is exactly what I want it to be. But don't you want more? More what? More space I don't need? More stuff I don't use? More performance of success? More, I don't know. More something. I smiled. The secret is that I already have everything I want. Peace. Purpose. Security. Freedom to live my values instead of performing for others. That's worth more than any penthouse or luxury car. Grandpa taught you that? Grandpa showed me that. By living it himself. By building wealth quietly and giving it purpose. By trusting me to do the same. He chose well, Elena said. He chose someone who understood that money isn't the goal. It's just the tool. The goal is using it to build something meaningful. Like helping family members learn to be secure instead of just look successful? Exactly like that. We sat in comfortable silence, eating simple food, enjoying real connection. Outside Astoria thrived. Inside we were building something lasting. Not the performance of family. The authentic thing. And every month I managed the trust Grandpa had left. Not just the money. The lesson. That real wealth isn't what you have. It's what you do with it. It's how you help others. It's living your values quietly, consistently, authentically. Grandpa would have been proud. Finally I was too. 2 years after Mom's death, all family members had reduced their debt by an average of 65%. The trust continued growing, now projected to last indefinitely with sustainable disbursements. Elena wrote a blog about financial authenticity that went viral. Dad started teaching workshops on living within your means. Aunt Caroline and Uncle Robert became advocates for financial literacy in their community. And I kept living in Astoria. Kept driving my Civic. Kept doing work that mattered. Not because I had to, but as I chose to. Because success isn't measured in appearances. It's measured in peace. In purpose. In knowing who you are regardless of what others think. That's what Grandpa taught me. That's what I taught my family. And that's the real inheritance, not the money but the wisdom. The understanding that real wealth is freedom. Real success is security. Real family is showing up with truth instead of performance. Mom was right to wait. The lesson took time. But it was worth it.